As the UK's self-appointed leading below 100 subscribers authority on games based on flop movies and Hulk Hogan references, it was only a matter of time before I stopped ignoring this, pointed my irises directly into its code and went, alright then. So here then is a look at Alternative Software's game adaptation of 1991's Suburban Commando. A Hulk Hogan vehicle par excellence? Actually, it is one of his better films, which isn't saying much. Rocky 3 forever! Suburban Commando the movie sees Hulk Hogan in his hot dog coloured tan pomp, cast as intergalactic gladiator Shep Ramsey. At the very beginning of the movie, we find Shep, who is tasked with rescuing the kidnapped President Hashina, who is the ruler of an entire planet, much like Vladimir Putin. The kidnapper is General Suter, who just happens to be the film's big bad, but he's also, secretly, a big reptile in disguise, just as David Icke keeps prophesying, and we don't listen to David Icke. We should listen to David Icke. There are reptile people. I don't believe that really, but let's pretend I do for this review. Anyway, he beats down Shep during this rescue attempt and badly wounds him, and he also kills the president in the process. Shep escapes, a bit wounded, but he has a tantrum as well, and he smashes up his own ship, and this forces him to crash land. And already I'm thinking that this guy is possibly the most incompetent otherworldly superhero ever. The film's barely started and you're sending Hulk Hogan up as a chump. What are you doing? So anyway, when he crash lands on Earth, we end up in the usual fish out of water comedy plotline, so better used by comedies like Coming to America or Crocodile Dundee. Shep ends up living with the family of weak-willed company man architect Putz, Charlie Wilcox, played by Christopher Lloyd, him of course being Doc Brown. Also in the cast are Shelley Duvall and Mark Calloway, better known by his wrestler moniker The Undertaker, who incredibly in 2020 still wrestles despite now being older than most of the people real Undertakers put in the ground. New Line Cinema acquired this masterpiece of a script after it was rejected in 1988 by the duo of Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito, as they decided to make twins instead. Clearly this was the better choice, as we ended up with Arnold Schwarzenegger singing Yakety Yak on a plane, and it sounds ridiculous, and I love it. Directed by veteran Western director Burt Kennedy, a strange choice for a modern day set action comedy, Suburban Commando duly tanked. It made just $8 million domestically off an $11 million budget and was hit by multiple negative reviews. The Rotten Tomato approval rating is currently 15% off of 13 reviews. Issa stinka. It is exactly the sort of film that an under 10 though will probably like and sit through and enjoy, much like how my 6-year-old son keeps seeing posters of Sonic the Hedgehog in the cinema and insists that I take him to go and see it. I do not want to go and see it, it looks awful. The movie, while performing pretty miserably at the cinema, did okay on VHS, and it was that, combined with the tail end of the peak of Hulkamania, and no doubt a cheap licence, that persuaded Alternative Software to get their in-house team to put together a computer game, which was eventually released for the MS-DOS, the Commodore 64 and the Amiga 2 years later in 1993. I will be concentrating on the Amiga version today because, well, it feels kind of familiar. Those sprites, the animation. Wait a minute, is this made with the same engine as a Low? It does seem that is the case. Alternative appears to have a division of in-house programmers that make licensed platformers about balding middle-aged men with moustaches for the Amiga. I shall have to see if they made it a trilogy with a game based on, I don't know, the dad from the Bisto adverts, Peter Bowles from To the Manor Born, or maybe even Ron Jeremy. Would I play that game? You're damn right I would play that game. The main part of the game is very similar to a low cartoon fun. The smooth scrolling levels are large both vertically and horizontally, and packed with villains and numerous collectibles, some of which I don't know what they do. Who does? Where this stage differs from a low though is that Shep Ramsey is a truly dynamic, well-trained martial arts expert. And he has multiple attack moves, though it does look ridiculous seeing a super deformed Hulk Hogan pulling off a little version of a Street Fighter II Dragon Punch. There aren't many levels. There's one set on Suter's mothership and 2 set on planet Earth. So that makes it a much shorter game than a low, but the game is bolstered by 2 factors: other game types and the fact that all of them are harder than the contents of the Iron Sheik's jockstrap when he put Hulk Hogan in the camel clutch during a championship encounter. The first level, for instance, before you even get to the platforming sections, is a Gradius-style space shooter as you fly Shep's little fighter through all sorts of obstacles and aggressors. Some of the enemy ships in this section suffer from that lazy design aspect familiar to many of us who played European microcomputer games in the 1980s. There's not much creativity on display here, with these perfunctory ships performing very average attack patterns. But worse, some of them look a bit like power-ups, and the first time you play you'll probably crash into 1 or 2 of them, thinking that you're going to get some juicy guns or speed bonuses. Another issue though is that you're given a energy bar, which is good, but there's no post-hit invincibility, which is bad, and you can be frustrated as life after life is wiped out in less than a second if you encounter a larger enemy. And yes, it does feature that annoying factor from Gradius and Nemesis and all the games like that, where if you lose a life and you're fully powered up, it's very hard to then finish the level. If you get right to the end of the level and you lose all your weapons and your speed, it's the difference between climbing the stairs of a bungalow and that of the Nakatomi Plaza while it's on fire from Bruce Willis making it blow up by having a helicopter crash into it. Lose a life in this section and by Christ, you better be as good as Daryl playing pole position on that Atari. Was it pole position? Someone correct me. Maybe it's checkered flag. The other game mode is a one-on-one fighter. Such was the trend at the time, but unfortunately it uses the same engine as the platformer. These end up playing a bit like Ninja Hamster or one of those substandard IK Plus rip-offs. The encounters are usually with the boss characters, and they feel a little bit like a Mega Man boss battle, but without the weapons, or the tension, or the fun. The game really doesn't follow the film at all well either. There's no catapulting cats, crushed ripe fruit, or Christopher Lloyd. The references to the movie are very, very low, aside from Hogan, the premise, and the fact that neither are very good. Reviews-wise, there's a bit of a range. Amiga Format gave the game a slating with a lowly 23%. On the same page as their low review nonetheless, and that got a much better score from them. Anyway, they said that Suburban Commando offers little in the way of gameplay, graphics or originality, so it kind of makes you wonder why they gave a low a much better score, really. Amiga Power though gave it a 62, saying it's not nearly as bad as it first appears, but it's still a very, very long way short of being worth £25. Christ, I thought it was a budget game when I started playing it. CU Amiga gave it a 68 and declared that if you're 8 years old and are still pining for the days that Hulk Hogan took on the Nasty Boys in the ring, then you'll find this nostalgic fun. Now, given this review was written in 1993, I think it would be quite hard to find an 8-year-old now that is nostalgic for when Hulk Hogan took on the Nasty Boys. Wrestling is a little bit more exciting now. So yes, I doubt there are many 8-year-olds that remember knobs and sags now. Knobs and sags, of course, are very different things as you get older. So many sags. So yes, another disappointment from old Thunderlips. Maybe not as disappointing as the racism allegations or the sex tape. Please don't look that up. But yes, Suburban Commando, is it worth your time? Nope, not really. Anyway, K, thanks, and bye. Brother.